Kia ora, how are you?
Good thing.
And yourself?
Not too bad, thank you.
Oh, great. Hey, firstly, just thank you. Thanks for joining the podcast today. I appreciate, probably out of everyone in Napier now, your time is probably at a premium. So I do appreciate just a little bit of time that you've given me to jump on the podcast and chew the fat with Faz. And before I start, I suppose a little disclaimer to people watching that I don't have any sort of political agenda or a whole lot of interest to people. Well, no, that's not true. I do have a bit of interest in how that runs, but this is essentially the first time I think I've met you in person, although it's virtually. So I thought I'd get that out there first and foremost. So yeah, thanks for jumping on, Kirsten.
No problem, my pleasure.
If you wouldn't mind, would you mind just maybe just telling us a little bit about yourself? I think a lot of people know who you are in regards to the Mayor of Napier, but just a little bit yourself, your upbringing, where you're from, etc.
Absolutely. So I am Napier born and raised, and I did disappear off to Australia for a few years when I was 8, when my parents headed over there. And then, like many of us Kiwis, I headed across to UK and the Europe in my early 20s and did my OE over there. But I always knew that Napier was where I would end up, and certainly where I would raise my own family. So I do think that we've got the best little city in the world. And that's one of the reasons that obviously I'm in the role that I'm in. My professional background is I'm an accountant. So I started working as an accounting clerk when I was 17, and then studied extramurally and got my degree whilst I was working, which was a really, really good way to actually get my qualifications. And the quite surreal thing is my council building is literally it was the data entry room of my first ever accounting job when Ernst Young was based here in the early 1990s. And my executive assistant now sits where my first desk was. So it's quite surreal at times.
Nice.
How's it been for you?
I didn't quite catch that. Sorry, you froze on me.
Sorry, just in regards to the lockdown period, how have you found it? And I'm picking that, unlike a lot of us, you wouldn't have been just holed up in your house for the last 7 weeks.
No, it's been very busy. So the first 4 weeks, the first level 4 period, I was at home most of the time, working and just still trying to maintain some structure to my day. And I did pop into the council office pretty much twice per week to meet up with our incident management team and just provide them with some support. So I wasn't completely within my bubble and was able to do that, obviously, as we are classified as essential service. And since we've been in level 3, I have been coming into the council office every day, not necessarily for the whole day, but again, just with as we geared up for the shift into alert level 2, which has created obviously quite a bit of work for us getting all our facilities ready to come back online.
Nice. Now, you mentioned your previous life and previous work in accounting, income tax. You've done a bit of coaching, you've done a bit of work in regards to governance, and you've also spent a bit of time as a councillor. Was mayor something that you'd always aspired to once you got into that sort of political arena, or how did that happen?
Actually been interested in politics since I was 3 years old. I was clearly quite a different child, and I said to my parents when I was 3 that I was intending to be the first woman Prime Minister of New Zealand. Had no idea what the Prime Minister did, but they just seemed awfully important. So obviously well and truly pipped at the post there. We've had several women Prime Ministers now. And what I did discover when I ran for local council is that actually that's where my heart really lies. And I did have one term on the District Health Board Governance Board. When I was on that board that I met the previous Napier Mayor, Barbara Arnott, and she encouraged me to stand as a councillor, and I did, and I was successfully elected on, and I just fell in love with it, and I knew pretty much straight away that I would at some stage take the leap and put myself out there to be mayor. And obviously that happened last year, and I'm still to this day very, very humbled by the huge support that I got and got elected on.
Yeah, and just on that, and your campaigning and eventually gaining the role, did you expect 8,000 votes, I believe it was, you were ahead of your next best, and that's no disrespect to Chris Tremaine or any of the other guys that were campaigning, but did you expect that overwhelming support and that margin leading into that campaign and obviously once you became mayor?
No, I certainly didn't. I was quite overwhelmed actually, and I know Chris personally. I knew him prior to this, and known and respected family here in Hawke's Bay and nationally, in fact. So it was interesting because when Chris announced, I had a few people ring me up and sort of go, "Oh, look, sorry, you're out of the running now." And I was like,
"It's a done deal."
Yeah. I was like, no, I like it. I like a good battle. So I was really pleased when he decided to throw his hat in the ring, and that just actually made me more motivated and really got me fired up to give it my all. And we had a bit of banter between us throughout the whole. But yeah, I certainly wasn't expecting to win by that majority.
Okay. And in regards to that whole process, that campaigning, it can be a pretty nasty arena. How did you finding the balance between obviously trying to get your points across, trying to campaign for the things that were really close to your heart, but also I guess trying to be civil, if at all? Is that possible during a campaign? Because I've seen campaigns and they can get pretty nasty and even personal at times. How did you find that part of the whole campaigning?
Yeah, I think on the whole here in Napier, we were all pretty good and quite kind. There was the odd little, squirmish that came out. But I actually absolutely loved every minute of campaigning, and people look at me like I'm a bit nuts when I say that. But I really did. I just going out, talking with people, door knocking, and for me, the main thing that I just wanted to ensure myself, and for the reason, to the reasons that I was deciding to run, and just ensuring that there was that really, really good connections with the community, which is ultimately sort of what drives me in this role. So yeah, it sounds a bit weird and people sort of look at me strangely, but I thoroughly enjoyed every single minute of the election and campaign period.
Nice. Now, we mentioned, well, I haven't mentioned, but there was a lot of things that you campaigned for and you were passionate about leading up to the mayoralty campaigning and ultimately your selection. Has the goalpost changed now, and what are the immediate plans sort of post-COVID?
Yeah, obviously, no one was expecting an international pandemic when we decided to run for these roles last year. And yes, the goalposts have changed in some regards, but I think in our overarching goal as a local council, we still have the same priorities. So we're still completely committed, obviously, to water and sorting out that we have here in Napier, and we're still completely committed to actually ensuring that the relationship between our council and our community just gets stronger and stronger, because obviously we have had a bit of a rough ride there in recent years. What has changed with COVID-19 is we of course are very, very focused at the moment on the economic recovery and the social recovery for Napier and our people. So that will definitely impact of our planning that has been in the pipeline. We will be doing a complete review of our capital program and just ensuring that we are focusing on the right things. And we're very fortunate actually in that next year it is the review of our long-term plan. So a complete review of what we need to be doing for the next 10 years and what our community wants us to do for the next 10 years. So I think COVID-19 is on that, and I'm really looking forward to doing the bonnet, going out to our community and saying, okay, what is important to you in this new world that we're living in, and let's have a really, really robust discussion about what that looks like for Napier in the next 10 years.
Nice. Now, I guess going back a bit to some of those things that you were passionate about, the Velodrome was one of the things that you were, so what was your thinking behind that, and why were you so, I guess, against that? I think that's fair to say. Was it just a case of that was a big resource that you didn't sort of feel we needed?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I don't want anyone to think I'm anti-progress and anti-investing in facilities for our community, because that's absolutely not the case. But to me, a velodrome was not something that a majority of our community wanted. Yes, you know, the cycling community wanted it without a doubt. But the reality is the numbers didn't stack up. And being an accountant, that was a concern to me. But the overriding concern was that based on the conversations I was having with people out in the community, they didn't want it. And, you know, the really, you know, cyclists can head up the road to the Cambridge Velodrome. There's other facilities available for them. And we've got the most incredible cycling tracks and outdoor and, you know, available. So to me, it just didn't stack up.
A no-brainer. And you mentioned water, and water's one of those things that's been, and we're not just talking, you know, drinking water. We're talking about our wastewater systems. And I actually, I jumped on it and jumped in on the extraordinary council meeting you guys had the other day, and just had a bit of a listen. I didn't listen to the whole thing, but I did listen to Catherine Bailey's report on that, which was pretty extensive, pretty robust. Would you be prepared to sort of summarize that into like maybe a couple of minutes and just let us know exactly where we are and what the future, I guess, immediate and long-term future is in regards to stormwater and drinking water, if you could?
Okay, I'll do my best. So yeah, we sort of have a few issues that are going along side by side. Yeah, the most immediate issue is the dirty water issues that we've been experiencing in some of our suburbs since the introduction of chlorine to our network. And that's the one that I've been putting a lot of pressure on staff to say, hey, you just got to sort this out. We can't expect our people to be putting up with dirty water coming out of their taps. So that's the immediate focus, and they are looking at a number of projects to address that. Some new bores in lower manganese areas, because it's this manganese chemical that's causing the problem.
Heard a bit about it. Yep.
And yeah, looking at some changes in our infrastructure. So that is the goal is to have that particular issue resolved within the sort of next 4 to 6 months, which will be great to take that one off. Alongside that, obviously, we've got a huge drive here in Napier from our community to remove chlorine from our network. We have got a beautiful aquifer sitting underneath us, and yeah, it's, again, when I was campaigning, it was one of the first things that came out of everybody's mouths, you know, can we take the water? So we are in the process of working through a chlorine-free review and what it would look like to enable us to remove chlorine from our network, and take that information back out to our community and say, okay, this is what it's going to cost, this is how long it's going to take, these are the implications, you know, you tell us how you'd like to move forward. So that's going to be a much longer sort of process to work through, but we're still completely and utterly committed to investigating options that are available to us there. And then sort of the third stream alongside that, which does incorporate stormwater and wastewater as well, is that at a national level at the moment, obviously, there's talk around Three Waters reform and the delivery of Three Waters becoming a far more centralised, aggregated model, which obviously the implications of that means that it may become completely outside of council's role and scope to deliver the waters at all. And that has some incredibly far-reaching implications for our community. And certainly not just here in Napier, but as a region, we are not particularly the prospect of that. And we've been working on a regional Three Waters review for quite some time now. So we're trying to fast track that to have that discussion with central government as to how, if they are intending to push forward with the centralisation, could we maintain and keep that control as a region, as opposed to, I think the proposal from them was south of the Bombay Hills down to the bottom of the North Island being one aggregated service delivery model.
Right.
So that's, yeah, so there's a lot going on, and that's it would be fair to say.
I think you did pretty well trying to summarise Catherine Bailey's report yesterday, so thank you for that. I'm sure, yeah, it's definitely a hot topic at the moment. Another thing you sort of touched on before was around the lack of transparency, and I guess the disconnect you'd felt or you'd seen in the council, which, you know, ultimately leads to, you know, a lack of trust from the community. And there was a lot of, I guess you could say, putting the cart before the horse, so to speak, making decisions with, and then consulting the community. So what have you done to kind of address that and change that? And is that a culture thing? Is it just the way it's been? And yeah, what have you done to sort of address that and try and change that, Kirsten?
Yeah, so this is an ongoing conversation that we're having, and one thing I guess about our new elected members is every single one of them, I can say without a shadow of a doubt, is completely and utterly committed to making this change. And, you know, recognising that it's interesting because in local government, the Local Government Act itself does not actually require a huge amount of consultation. And for me, what I've been saying all along is just because we can get away with doing the bare minimum does not mean that we should. And I've been having that chat with staff as well, and they're totally on board. And we have obviously just got a new interim chief executive who now having really good discussions around that as well. Again, COVID-19 sort of came along and threw a bit of a more difficult spin on things, because it's really hard to try and consult and engage with people when you're in lockdown. But we're looking at, as we move through the levels, the different ways that we can engage with our community, and also recognising that even as we move into alert level 1, there are going to be a lot of people that still feel very anxious.
Yep.
Just being in larger groups. So we're trying to be as innovative as possible, so that we do still build that trust and that relationship. I started my town huddles when straight after elections, which was a weekly, very much open, relaxed public meeting that community members could come along and just ask any questions, have a chat, voice any concerns, or even just sit and listen. And we were getting on average sort of between each week and getting some great information and questions coming through from our community. So that's something that I'm really keen to start up again when I can, and probably doing a lot more in the online sense as well for those people that are still feeling like they want to stay home more than go out and be in a public type forum. Great.
And you mentioned on your, just touching on information, and there's a lot of information particularly around COVID and just information in general coming from a local level or government level, community groups. And you mentioned in one of your posts on your Facebook page around working with your recovery working group around trying to streamline that information or making sure people are accessing the right information. I mean, social medias can be really good and it can be really bad for spreading types of information. So where are you at with that, and what's your recommendation in regards to the public when taking on information?
Yeah, it's really difficult because there is so much out there for everybody to remember, in particular with relation to COVID-19, is the COVID-19 website really is the one source of all. So that is the one that people should be going to in the first instance. What I'm talking to our recovery working group around, and we have already done some of this, is within our website and our resources actually having a single point of information for people to go to as well. So my firm, which I no longer have a lot of time to do things in, but I still have regular contact with my staff there and clients. And as you know, business owners, they're the ones too that really need as much help as they can possibly have now as we move through into alert level 2. So steering them in the right direction as to how they access support and the various funds that are available. So it's just trying to take all that confusion and all that messiness out of it so that there's one place they can go and find everything that they need to know.
Great. So nextly, just in regards to this whole situation, this whole lockdown, this whole COVID, we've had to sort of really change rapidly on the way we do things. We've had to do things differently. Obviously, Zoom's been probably used the most it has been. And going forward, are there some lessons or some things that you've learned from this process that you may look to implement going forward? And sorry, I've sat on reference groups and I've sat in different in a former job where my calendar had been like Monday to Friday, it's meetings, it's several people traveling from all over the place to a central place, and usually there's a spread of food or whatever. Are there learnings from this that you guys are going to take forward as far as working more effectively and efficiently and ultimately cost savings?
Oh, I think we all need to have a really good look at the way that we work. It's been interesting because I did sort of think that there may be less meetings in these lockdowns, but it hasn't really. It's just back-to-back Zooms all day. But there's certainly, I mean, the cost savings are absolutely there. The time savings are absolutely there because you're not travelling around. And I think we just need to have a little bit of look of how we've been doing it, because there's almost been just this mad frenzy for everybody to just continue to have all the meetings and Zoom in as much as possible. So I think there's some rationalisation that needs to happen there, and looking at how we can work both with a most appropriate and then transition into having some of those face-to-face physical meetings back online again. But I think post-COVID-19 is a huge opportunity for all organisations, not just our council, but all businesses and organisations and community groups and individuals, in fact, to have a bit of a reset and think about, what is the best use of their time and how can we be more efficient and effective with the use of our time to get that correct balance in our lives, which
Yeah, no, totally agree. Just, personally with the work I do, we've been able to work remotely and, reasonably effectively too with the youth and the clients that we work with. So we're in the same boat. We're thinking about, how can we still implement that face-to-face contact, because that's essential in a lot of respects, but in some other respects, maybe not so. So yeah, it's a good conversation, and I'm sure a lot of businesses will be having that. again, I'm conscious of your time, Kirsten. So I just wanted to touch, maybe get away from all the politics and boring stuff. No, it's not boring; it's essential. But I'm picking your job as not your sort of standard 9 to 5, and I'm picking it. It's probably hard for you to detach. So what do you do to get away or unwind from the day-to-day grind of politics and being the Mayor of Napier? Or are you even able to do that?
It is very difficult. Over the last period, because when you're working from home as well, then that sort of becomes all-encompassing. I'm an avid gym goer, so
I've spotted you F45 a couple of times, I think.
Yes. So I was there this morning for their first class and
nice.
reopening. Yep.
Well
yep. So and that's for me, I think, one of the biggest ways that I de-stress. Just to get that 45-minute workout in most days is great. And myself and my foodies, and we do enjoy the odd wine. So we've actually saved a heap of money in lockdown because we haven't been able to go out. So I am looking forward to being able to go out and support some of our local restaurants. We've done click and collect a few times, which has been fantastic, but nothing quite beats actually going and having that dining in experience. So that's another way that I like to unwind.
Great. And I guess on a slightly different note, and it comes with the territory, how do you get on with all the negative feedback you receive? Obviously, being the mayor, you're on multiple social platforms. I guess you could be seen as an easy target. How do you deal with that? Does it faze you? Do you read too much into it? Is it just, are you used to it? How do you sort of deal with that, Kirsten?
Yeah, I think once upon a time I used to let it get to me, but you actually do have to develop a fairly thick skin. And I do have a few rules, particularly in relation. If I do get a comment come through that sort of makes my blood boil initially, then I make sure I walk away, take a bit of time. And, if anyone messages me on my mayoral Facebook page, I will always answer, and that's a commitment that I have made. And I think it's really, really important that you respect that other people have differing opinions, and be respectful in any responses that you give, rather than letting it get. And I think I'm pretty good now. It's not too often that I get a little bit upset. Yeah.
Okay. Just a couple more things, and again, this you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but just your thoughts, just really briefly, on the government's response to the whole crisis. How have you found that?
I think on the whole they've done an amazing job, and obviously there's still going to be further initiatives rolled out in the coming weeks. Add to what's already come through, and I've seen some of the submissions that have been sent through to them by various national bodies who are seeking assistance, and that's right across the board: sporting organisations, events management, tourism. So there's huge demands on central government, and we don't have a bottomless pit. So they're in that very difficult position of having to try and make the best decision for the whole of the community, and I really don't envy at our level for the city of Napier. So really, I think you've got to give them credit for what they've done so far, and of course budget day today. There's going to be some more information coming out, obviously, over the next little while as well.
And just quickly, in regards to the budget, what are some of the things you're really hoping that will benefit, I guess, not just New Zealand, but I guess communities and regional areas? What are you hoping to come out of the budget today, Kirsten?
I think for me, having had 10 years in total in the health sector here, so I actually worked as a senior management accountant at the District Health Board and then had one term on the board there. It did make me very, very aware of the inequalities and inequity across our community. And it's something that's been talked about and talked about and talked about, you know, throughout not just health, but all sectors. And I would really like to see quite a in light of COVID-19 that allows us to move forward and start addressing some of these really long-standing, you know, institutionalized issues that we just need to stop talking about and actually start working to fix.
And yeah, I totally agree. And I've worked in health and Māori health for a while, and yeah, that's the rhetoric that we just need to be pragmatic about it now and stop talking about it, stop the reference groups, stop the this and that, and let's just do the doing. Yeah, so I totally agree with that. Well, I'm conscious that's 30 minutes, and that's, you guys promised me 30 minutes. We're actually at about 32 minutes. So I guess, again, I just want to really thank you and appreciate your time, Kirsten, for jumping on. I sent Kirsten this email probably about a month ago, just saying, look, I've got this idea to do a podcast, and I wasn't actually expecting a response. It was literally right in the middle of COVID. You did get back to me, and I really appreciate your time. So, I mean, just in closing, is there any final message that you'd like just to give to, I guess, the community, particularly Napier in general, and what you'd like and what your vision is for Napier going forward?
I think the one thing, and I have said it several times in my video posts and things, but is just a huge thank you to everybody. It's been tough. It's been damn tough, and people have stepped up and they've done what they needed to do. So we're now in a position where we can start focusing on the future and what that looks like. For me, and people look at me strangely sometimes because I'm an accountant, but again, having worked in health for a significant period of time, that really sort of flipped my thinking in terms of the way that leaders need to interact or represent their communities. So we're having lots of discussions here with the councillors and the staff about, okay, we're moving into recovery, and that can't just be our economic recovery. It actually has to be at the core of everything we do. It has to. So we're looking at how those core well-beings can actually be at the centre of everything we do, and we'll be going out to the community to talk about that as well and say, okay, what do you need from us, and what is the best way that we can serve you? So I'm really, really excited about having those discussions and moving forward in a way that we can look after our community in a far more holistic way than councils, I would say, traditionally have. Great.
Oh, that's awesome. And again, thanks so much for your time today, Kirsten. And yeah, I'm sure you've got plenty of work ahead of you, but I'm no doubt you'll sink your teeth in and do the best you can for our community and for Napier. Thanks for joining us.
No problem. Been my pleasure.
Thanks, Kirsten.
See you later.
Bye-bye.